Since the most ancient times, the Bible describes monumental constructions that defy human logic. Structures so colossal and impressive that to this day leave scientists and archaeologists without definitive answers. How were ancient peoples, without access to modern technologies, able to erect these wonders? Could it be possible that something beyond human ingenuity was behind these constructions? In this video, we will explore some of the greatest architectural works mentioned in the Bible and the mysteries that still surround them. Since the dawn of humanity, the desire to achieve the impossible has driven civilizations to challenge their own limits. Colossal monuments erected by human hands stand through the centuries as testimonies of grandeur and ambition. Among these constructions, few are as mysterious and controversial as the Tower of Babel. A bold project, aiming to reach the heavens and guarantee humanity unprecedented power. But how could an ancient people have erected such a marvel? And why does its story end so abruptly? The Bible tells us that after the flood, Noah's descendants multiplied and inhabited the plain of Shinar in Mesopotamia. United by a single language, they decided to build a grand city and a tower that would reach the heavens. Their goal was clear: prevent them from being scattered over the earth and consolidate human power into a single nation. They used baked bricks and bitumen as mortar, advanced technologies for the time, but something aroused divine wrath. The Lord came down to see the construction, and noticing the people's determination, he confused their language and scattered them across the world. The tower was then abandoned, and the city came to be called Babel. But is this story just a myth, or is there evidence supporting the existence of the Tower of Babel? Many scholars believe it may have been inspired by the enormous Mesopotamian ziggurats. These structures, similar to stepped pyramids, were temples dedicated to the gods and existed in various cities in the region. The largest of all was the Etemenanki, a ziggurat of Babylon that, according to ancient records, was over 90 meters tall. Its construction dates back thousands of years before Christ, and for centuries it was one of the largest buildings in the world. However, even the known ziggurats do not fully explain the grandeur of the Tower of Babel described in the Bible. The Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Babylon in the 5th century before Christ, described an impressive structure with a colossal base and steps leading to the top. But what happened to this tower? Was it destroyed by the action of time or by a sudden event, as reported in the Bible? Some archaeological excavations suggest that large temples of antiquity may have collapsed due to earthquakes or invasions, but the idea of a construction abruptly interrupted and abandoned due to a linguistic confusion, it remains one of the greatest enigmas in history. Beyond the structural issue, there is the mystery of linguistic dispersion. How could a single event have caused the fragmentation of human languages? Some scientists believe that languages evolved gradually over thousands of years, but the Bible suggests a sudden change. Something that challenges conventional models of linguistics. The fact is that the origin of languages is still a controversial topic, and there is no consensus on how so many variations emerged around the world in such a short period of time. Whether a legend or a real event, the Tower of Babel continues to intrigue scholars and archaeologists. Its purpose was ambitious, to unite all of humanity into one people and challenge the very limits imposed by the Creator. But in the end, its downfall resulted in the exact opposite, a dispersion that shaped the course of human civilization. However, that was not the only biblical construction that impressed generations. Centuries later, another monumental building was erected, this time in Jerusalem, a temple of indescribable wealth, built to be the dwelling of God Himself on earth. Its name, the Temple of Solomon. Unlike the Tower of Babel, its construction was not interrupted, but its final fate is just as enigmatic. If the Tower of Babel represented human ambition to reach the heavens, the Temple of Solomon symbolized something even more grandiose, the divine presence dwelling among men. Unlike the tower, which sought to exalt human glory, the temple was built to glorify God and establish a sacred place for worship. Its construction was one of the most magnificent ever undertaken in antiquity, involving rare materials and advanced techniques that still intrigue scholars and archaeologists today. But how did a small kingdom like Israel manage to build such an impressive structure? And why, despite so many detailed descriptions in the Bible, did the temple simply disappear from history? The construction of Solomon's temple began around the 10th century before Christ, when King Solomon, son of David, ordered the sanctuary to be built in Jerusalem. The Bible reports that God Himself had chosen that location, on Mount Moriah, as the center of Israelite worship. The temple's design followed specific patterns, with dimensions and details meticulously recorded in the sacred texts. It had a main sanctuary, known as the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant was located, surrounded by a structure adorned with pure gold, cedar from Lebanon, and stones precisely sculpted. But how did the Israelites, a relatively small nation, manage to build something so grand? The answer may lie in the alliance between Solomon and Hiram, king of Tyre, one of the maritime powers of the time. The Phoenicians were masters in architecture and engineering, supplying cedar wood, skilled artisans, and advanced construction knowledge. Additionally, records indicate that thousands of workers were recruited to build the temple, including foreigners and slaves. All of this resulted in a work of monumental proportions, which shone as the spiritual and political center of the Kingdom of Israel. However, despite the temple's wealth and grandeur, its existence did not last forever. In 586 before Christ, Babylon, under the command of King Nebuchadnezzar II, invaded Jerusalem, destroyed the city, and set the temple on fire, taking the Israelites into captivity. The destruction was so complete that in the following centuries, little remained of the original construction. Even so, the temple did not disappear from the people's memory. After the return of the exiles, a second temple was built, even though it was less grand than the first. Later, in the 1st century before Christ, King Herod expanded, and he renovated the temple, transforming it into one of the largest buildings of the ancient world. But like the first, it also met its end. In the year 70-something AD, the Romans, under the command of General Titus, completely destroyed the temple, leaving only a few ruins, such as the famous Wailing Wall. What intrigues scientists and archaeologists is the lack of concrete evidence of the first temple. While the second temple left evident traces in Jerusalem, Solomon's temple seems to have disappeared without a trace. Some theories suggest that its materials were plundered and reused, while others believe that there may still be fragments buried beneath the current Temple Mount area. However, excavations in this area are practically impossible due to the religious and political sensitivity of the site. Besides the mystery of its disappearance, there is another enigma, the Ark of the Covenant, which was located in the Holy of Holies of the temple. According to biblical tradition, the Ark contained the tablets of the law and represented the divine presence. However, there are no clear records about what happened to it after the destruction of the temple. Some legends say it was hidden before the Babylonian invasion and taken to a secret location. Others claim it was taken by the Babylonians themselves and was never found again. The fact is that to this day, no one knows for sure what its fate was. Even without concrete traces, Solomon's Temple remains one of the most fascinating and mysterious constructions in history. It was not just a building, but the spiritual heart of the people of Israel, a work of unparalleled splendor built to honor God. But if the grandeur of the temple is already impressive, there is a biblical construction even more enigmatic, a colossal vessel. Allegedly built by a single man who supposedly withstood a flood of global proportions. Its name, Noah's Ark. Would it have been possible for a boat of such dimensions to be built at that time? Could a wooden structure house so many animals and survive the flood? These questions lead us to the last chapter, where we will explore the mystery of Noah's Ark and the countless searches for its remains. If Solomon's Temple was the representation of the meeting between God and man on earth, Noah's Ark symbolizes divine salvation amid the greatest disaster the world would have ever witnessed. According to the Bible, Noah received a clear order from God to build a huge wooden boat to save his family and a pair of each animal species from the imminent flood. But how could a single man have managed to build a gigantic vessel, capable of withstanding devastating storms and keeping thousands of animals alive? The story of the Ark is so extraordinary that even today, scientists, engineers, and explorers seek answers. Could it be a myth, or is there concrete evidence of its existence? According to the biblical account in the book of Genesis, God gave Noah detailed instructions for building the Ark. The ship should be 300 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high, which would be equivalent to about 137 meters in length, approximately the size of a modern cargo ship. The Ark was made of gopher wood, a material whose exact identity is still unknown today, and it was coated with pitch inside and out to ensure its waterproofing. The design included 3 floors and a ventilation system, details that indicate an extremely well-planned structure for long-term survival. But could a vessel of those proportions really have been built at that time? Experts disagree. Some naval engineers point out that even with advanced technology, constructing a wooden structure of that size would present immense challenges, such as the need for internal reinforcements to prevent the hull from breaking in the open sea. Others suggest that if the Ark had been made using wood joint and locking techniques like ancient Egyptian boats, its viability would be greater than imagined. Beyond the structural issue, there is the mystery of survival inside the Ark itself. How did Noah and his family manage to feed and care for thousands of animals for more than a year? Some theories suggest that many of the animals could have entered a state of hibernation, reducing their need for food and water. Others speculate that Noah took only representative species instead of every individual animal, which would explain the logistics of the internal space. But the biggest question that intrigues scientists and archaeologists is, did Noah's Ark really exist? Over the centuries, various expeditions have been organized to find traces of the Ark, and most of them point to the same location, Mount Ararat in present-day Turkey. According to the Bible, after the waters receded, the Ark rested on the mountains of Ararat, a location that is difficult to access and often covered by snow and ice. Ancient travelers, such as Marco Polo, have already reported legends of a large boat preserved at the mountain's summit. In the 20th century, various expeditions claim to have found evidence of the Ark, including structures of petrified wood and satellite images suggesting a shape similar to a ship buried in the snow. In 1959, a Turkish pilot photographed an unusual formation in the region, known as the Ararat Anomaly. Later, researchers like Ron Wyatt and other explorers claimed to have found ancient wooden fragments that could belong to the Ark. However, none of these discoveries have been definitively confirmed by the scientific community, leaving the question open. Interestingly, the account of a great flood is not exclusive to the Bible. Ancient cultures around the world, such as the Sumerians, Babylonians, Hindus, and even indigenous peoples of the Americas, have similar stories about a catastrophic flood and a hero who saves living beings in a vessel. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest texts of humanity, describes a global flood and a man named Utnapishtim who builds a boat to survive, an incredibly similar story to that of Noah. This raises an intriguing question. Did a large-scale event actually occur in the past that inspired these accounts? Whatever the truth may be, the mystery of Noah's Ark continues to fascinate and challenge scientists and archaeologists. The possibility of finding a concrete trace of the vessel could change the way the history of humanity is told. But for now, the Ark remains one of the greatest enigmas of the Bible, a monumental construction that, if real, would have been the key to the survival of life on Earth after an apocalyptic event. Just like the Tower of Babel and Solomon's Temple, Noah's Ark represents more than just a simple construction. It symbolizes a decisive moment for humanity, a milestone in the relationship between God and man. 3 grand constructions, each with a distinct purpose. Challenge the heavens, inhabit the divine presence, and preserve creation. They remain shrouded in mystery, leaving scholars and scientists speechless about what they might represent.